Welcome to the Black Appalachian Coalition's podcast entitled Black Remembering, where we will bring to you the heavy and the hope across the Ohio River Valley. We want to remember who we are, where we've come from. We want to speak to the oral history of what we've done, what we've achieved. We want to speak to the ills that we have experienced while also finding solutions to those problems, those issues. We want to deal with the narrative that has kept us deeply rooted in despair. Now we want to punch through that narrative and stand up and say, we are remembering our Black past, and we are rooted, and we are here to stay. Welcome to Black Remembering. We hope that you find your place, your space, and your voice in this podcast.
Hello, everyone. So, welcome to another episode of the Black Remembering podcast presented by the Black Appalachian Coalition. I am Nikita Brooks Hale, and you may not have heard my voice too much on the podcast, but I am Black's podcast editor and manager. And today I am joined for this special conversation by Nita Jade. They are Black's cultural organizer. And so today's conversation, we're going to be creating this space to talk about something that I think is inevitable, and that is the upcoming election. At the time of this recording, we are about a week out from the election, and there's a lot in the air. There's a lot going on, and while there are spaces being created to talk, I don't think it's being talked about enough in the communities that matter most. And so that is what we're going to do today. We're going to be having more of a conversation. So this is not an interview, and we invite you to tune in, and we invite you to have others tune in, and then welcome you all to have similar conversations between yourselves and others. So here we go. This episode was prompted by a recent webinar that Nita Jade attended. So I'm going to start off by just asking her to share with us some of the information about the webinar and how that kind of influenced our conversation for the day. So Nita Jade, talk to us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Nikita. And just real quick to know how amazing you are at producing these podcast episodes. It didn't really click in my mind that we don't hear your voice often. So this is just a special treat. Thank you. The Amazing Praxis Project, which is a nonprofit organization, national nonprofit, who works in partnership with national, regional, state, and local partners to achieve health equity and justice for all their communities. They put on a yearly convening called Roots and Remedies, where so many communities come together. They're really big on language justice. I really admire how well they execute that. And their mission is to build healthy communities by transforming the power, relationships, and structures that affect our lives and communities. So this email pops into my inbox at some point this past week, and it was a community conversation in preparation for the election. And that is where, a lot of our hearts are and minds are right now. So went ahead and attended it on Wednesday, October 30th. And it was really cathartic and refreshing in that it offered us a space to voice our concerns and our hopes. But it also offered us a framework for how to prepare our communities and ourselves for the upcoming election. So my takeaways from the Praxis Project's webinar is to think about this election season as packing for a trip. So in this election season, we know that no matter what, there will be an outcome. And when we pack for a trip, we set the intention of going somewhere. And when we're packing, we're thinking about and planning for where we intend to end up. So when you pack for a trip, you plan, you think ahead, you pack your necessities and the items you know you'll need. And you might also pack your just in case items. If you're a worrywart like me, you're going to pack like 5 extra pairs of socks or an emergency sewing kit or something just in case. And in a way, that's using this thing called the SWOT analysis. We do that simply when we pack our bags. So the SWOT analysis can be applied to this election season, and SWOT, excuse me, is a strategy technique that prompts you to assess what you have, what you need, what's good, and what's bad or ugly. So the S in SWOT stands for strength. When my life is a little bit more together, I remember to do things like check my cabinets or check my fridge before I go to the grocery store. And when you take stock of what you have, you know how to properly prepare for your next action. So strength asks us to gauge our inventory. What do we have in our back pockets? What are we already good at? What physical, intellectual, or spiritual resources do we already have access to? And what are our current advantages? The W in SWOT stands for weaknesses. Weaknesses also ask us to gauge our inventory just on the other end of it. So what are we missing? What do we need? Where are the points of tension, worry, or struggle? What's standing in the way of overcoming the obstacle in front of us? The O stands for opportunities. So who's in our communities? Who is in our network? Who might value, need, or seek our strengths? What may work in our favor? What prizes, grants, or opportunities are already within our reach or could be within our reach? And lastly, T stands for threats. When you're hyper aware of your surroundings, when you walk outside your door, when you eat in a restaurant, you're probably looking around, taking everything in, making sure you can peep the exits, making sure there isn't, I don't know, a rogue skunk somewhere near you. You're taking stock of your surroundings, and T asks you to do the same thing. Take stock of your surroundings, take stock of your threats, including the physical threats, the intellectual threats, the mental threats, the emotional risks. Take stock of all of that so you can prepare yourself. Essentially, the biggest takeaway that I held near and dear to my heart was to stay ready so you got to get ready and hope for the best, but plan for the worst.
Nice. Thank you for sharing this, Nita Jade. What's coming to mind for me as I'm hearing you kind of go through the SWOT analysis is how timely this is, how this can be directly applied to where we're at right now. Hence why I believe they focused on it in the webinar. But it's this realization that for me specifically, I'm speaking for myself, like what I'm feeling right now is a lot of worry about the unknown. And the worry is not voting. Like I'm not worried about the act of actually voting. My worry is coming up from what life will be like after I vote. And that unknowingness is what's making me at times feel powerless. And so this SWOT analysis that you've introduced for us is a way for me to take that power back and to really look at me and my life, because what I'm not going to do, what we're not going to do is give my power to someone else. Like that is something that I was given by my ancestors. That is something I'm born with. That is something that I will leave this earth with. And so being able to, for me in my life, talk about my strengths, figure out what strengths I have. So no matter what happens in this election, what am I still good at? What do I still bring to the table? What is still my purpose in life? Because that's not going to change. And I encourage everyone to think about this. You're still you today. You're still you on November 5th. You're still you on November 6th and every day after. And so how you do you is still going to be that. And so really find that strength and that solace in recognizing and acknowledging and naming what that is, as well as the opportunities. There's a lot of work right now being done. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work being done to make sure that communities feel supported. And so are you taking part in that? What research and what things can you do to become a part of that, to help with it, to be on the receiving end? And so I just found this really, like you said, for the webinar, cathartic. And so it made me remember that I still am in this. Like nothing's going to be taken away from me unless I allow it to, generally speaking. And so thank you for bringing that in. One other thing that I want to encourage us to do is just a few questions and things to ponder. And so that SWOT analysis allowed us to, and will allow you to hopefully physically write these things down. And I encourage you to do that. And also these questions that I'm about to pose and these thoughts that I'm about to pose. Take some time to pause after each one in this recording, in this episode, and write down what you feel. What are those strengths? What are those weaknesses, opportunities, and threats? And then these additional questions. And so the first question that I have for everyone that I want you all to consider, that I'm going to ask myself as well, is how are you feeling about the upcoming election? And there's a lot of thoughts and things that come to mind, but actually write down, take a minute and write down every thought and feeling and phrase, color, memory that comes to mind when I ask, how are you feeling about the upcoming election? It's really important to name these feelings because it it allows you to sort through them and work them out, because I found that a lot of watching the media around election have made me feel worried, made me feel powerless. But then if I think about the election, it really is that there's just a lot of unknown. And that brings about frustration and maybe not as much worry, but maybe frustration. So being able to parse and separate the emotions and feelings that are mine versus ones that others may be trying to make us feel, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is, what are your current worries? So it's okay to be worried. It's real. There's real reasons to be worried right now, and be specific about exactly what you're worried about. And this isn't, for me, in the way my brain works, I can just always say that I'm worried and I can get caught up in the act of being worried. But then if I would really sit down and ask myself what I'm worried about, when I'm able to be specific, then I can begin, like you mentioned, to create a plan, to create my packing list, to begin to pack in those tools so that I can work through those worries. Because the goal is not to just stay worried. Nobody wants to stay worried about things.
Right.
So the goal is to acknowledge those and then say, I can be worried and also working to get to a different place within this worry. So we just don't want to stay in this one place. We want to, I love to live in the and, worried and knowledgeable, worried and educated, worried and doing the work needed to do so that we don't have to continue to worry.
Can I piggyback off of that, Nikita?
Please do.
So even when you take stock of your worries to help with not staying in this stuck place of just being worried, go ahead and make a T chart where on the left hand side you can list all of the things that you can control, and on the right hand list all the things that you just out of your control. You know, if you're in an area that got hit by a natural disaster, you didn't create that natural disaster, you can't control that, but you can control being there to support your neighbors. You can control checking in on your loved ones. And often we fixate on the things that we can't control, and that's a good way to make you sick. So take stock of what you can control and then try to focus your energy there.
That's really good. I've heard it referred to, as my therapist likes to say, what's in your hula hoop. And so if you were to physically put a hula hoop or a circle around that thing, the things you can control in that T chart, that's all you got to worry about right now. That's all you should be in your realm. So that's a really important reminder. Thank you. The last question or thing to ponder is, like, where's your hope? What are you hopeful about? Because while there is seemingly a lot of things to worry about, there's also a lot of hope. And so, what are some things that you're hopeful for? What are the possibilities? I think that that breath of fresh air and that hope comes from thinking about the possibilities. That's why this podcast is highlighting the heavy and the hope, and because they coexist. It's not one or the other. So again, those three questions are: how are you feeling about the upcoming election? What are your current worries? And what are your hopes, or what are you looking? What are the possibilities? And again, we encourage you to write these out for yourself and then ask those closest to you to do the same, to write out these questions and these answers and then share them between each other. Have this dialogue. Around when I think about the election, this idea of power, both perceived and actual, comes to mind, and it's really big. And the election can be really divisive and often feels like a fight between those who are quote unquote powerful and those who are quote unquote powerless. But we have to remember that you hold your own power to a certain extent. And so keep that. Again, as I said in earlier, don't let anybody take that from you. And our power also comes in numbers and from within our communities. we're able to make change. We're able to do what we need to do. We're able to thrive as a community in groups. We're not in this alone. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm also taking it all in. Like I think there's been so much fear mongering. Like even when I go to the gym, all that's playing is coverage on the elections,
Mhm.
and then I kind of look around at who's staring daggers at me and who's smiling at me, and it can feel really daunting. And I just appreciate you for saying that, reminding me and everyone listening that we are not powerless, that our ancestors have endured, and we have that strength within us.
So, with that in mind, you mentioned going to the gym and whatnot. Again, remember who is in your community. Literally, who are the people? Who are your neighbors? Who is around you? And how can they support you? How can you support them? And overall, like, how can you all connect more? This is a time to really lean into those around us because we need it. As I said, we're not meant to go at this alone. And so having that support, whether it's your next door neighbor or local organizations, I really believe that community connection and conversation are our lifeline. And it's vital for all of us to keep going. So that was a lot. I mean, it was simple, simplistic, but also really all encompassing. So just take a moment to take that in. And then I would love to kind of begin to start closing us out and thinking about Nina Jade, what we've talked about, what we are continuing to think about. What else would you like to add for this conversation?
I'm always thinking of how to take actionable steps. One of our Black team members often says that she doesn't like staying in hypothetical spaces, and it makes me itchy. It like gets me in the middle of my back. So I'm trying to um think of like how this can be actualized, and mentioning, the area that I'm in, and I meet many kind people and also meet many unkind people, and going to the polls is a source of fear and intimidation. And my action plan is to get 2 to 3 people to go with me. I don't have family members here, so we can't roll in 10 members deep, but I can ask 2 or 3 friends to come with me to the voting poll. And I encourage y'all to do that if you are in an area where you feel unsafe, or if you're pretty comfortable in your community. Either way, there's power in numbers, and it never hurts to ask someone to accompany you. And now I'm thinking about, election day, and how to take care of myself and how to make sure I'm connected with my loved ones on that day as well, and in the days afterwards. And I'm making a plan to be on the phone with 1 of 3 people at all hours that day. So I'm going to annoy my mama and my sister and my best friend, and I'm gonna keep them on rotation. But just not feeling isolated and not feeling alone that day is important. And then even to take stock of who is in your community. What opportunities are there, what strengths and communities are already in place where you are, and had never really asked myself that question before. Granted, I haven't lived in this area for very long, but all it takes is a Google search. So a quick Google search that involved the words anti-racist organization, and insert wherever you live. And I found a few, potential local organizations that I really want to connect with. One of them is the Appalachian Promise Alliance, and the other one is Future Bristol Leaders Coalition. I mean, it's vital just to know that you are not alone in a place. So yeah, those are things I can control, actionable steps to take, and hopefully there are actionable steps that y'all can take as well.
Nice. I love action and kind of going along with that. My plan, I actually was able to vote early, and I believe that was for us in my area on the 15th of October. And so I made sure I was there on the first day. So that way I did my part to a certain extent. Like at the end of the day, I voted and I can say I voted. And for me, if I would have waited, and this is just how my brain works, like it would feel really heavy to have to wait until the actual day for me. And it would always be at the back of my mind. And what if I got sick, or what if one of my kids got sick, and all of a sudden I'm not able to vote? And so I knew that it was going to cause a lot of anxiety for me. So I made it a point to go ahead and vote on that first day. So that way I could then use this excess energy to not worry, but to be a support, for those in my community, to make a point to be out and about, especially on election day, to just those who may look like me, may not look like me, but just giving a smile to those, because I know that day is going to be real heavy, and especially, and also the day after. And so I did my voting early so that way I could use my energy to support others and be there. And again, tapping into those local organizations. Who are those folks that are doing that hard work and that hard work that may also need support? To just, are they having watch parties? Are they having meetings? Are they having potlucks leading up or on the night of the election? If so, join them for that community, just again to know that you are not in it alone. And so I know for me, this feels like a lot. And again, it's because it is. There's a lot at stake, but I'm also reminded that this presidential election is not the end all be all. Like, the real work starts the day after the election and goes all the way for the next almost 4 years to the
Mm.
day before the next election. That's when that real work, that's when that journey takes place. And so I am focusing on that, as opposed to just whatever the results are going to be that evening. And that gives me some sort of, I've got time,
Mm.
knowing that time isn't promised, but kind of that, but I've got time. Like, my work is going to continue, no matter what. And so my purpose is not going to be determined by the results of this election. I've still got my whole life, however long or short that may be, to continue doing the work and continue living my passion, to continue supporting and inspiring others. And so that's what kind of like my plan entails.
You be dropping gems just casually. Like, my purpose is not determined by the outcome of this election. That is going on a wall and on a mirror. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and I'll say it again, like, it's for myself first. My purpose is not determined by the outcome of this election. It does not diminish or amplify it.
Mm.
Um, so, so yeah, remember that, y'all. And so, one last plug for the community and the organizations. Like, what are the core organizations that are doing that work and supporting your community? How can you engage and connect with them? Again, we've had multiple natural disasters in these last few months, and so that is on top, well, the election is just placed on top of that. And so some of these organizations just may need folks to say, hey, we no longer have cars to go to the polls. We need folks who are willing. It's only a block away because maybe they put up an emergency polling place because the old one was decimated by the disaster. We need folks who are willing to help us go around the community and say, hey, we're walking together to go to the polls. Will you be willing to do that? That is a simple thing that can make a big, big difference. You've got the community, you've got your in numbers, and so find out what your community needs and be a part of that if you're able. And so, with that, again, we don't know what next week is going to say. And at the end of the day, it matters, but it's not the end all be all. We're going to keep doing what we need to do. We want to keep connecting. We want to keep being that support. And so keep that in mind. Look at that T chart. Look at the things that you've written down that are in your control. Look at your suitcase and remember the things you've planned for, the things that, those just in case, those plan Bs. You've got this. We've got this. We have each other. We have our support, and we're going to be here for each other regardless. And so, um, just take this time to just be, to take it in, and to know that no matter what, we are equipped to take the next few steps. So I just want to thank y'all for tuning in today. This was a very real conversation, and we would love to hear your thoughts. We want you to be a part of this dialogue. Give us feedback, tell us what you're thinking, and you can do that by connecting with us and engaging with us on social media. And we'll put all those places in the show notes, as well as any of the resources like those local organizations and how to find local organizations around you. We'll put all those in our show notes today. Um, Anita Jade, if there's nothing else that you want to add,
Mm-mm. You
then
said it. You did it. I'm still carrying that.
then we will close out today. And just know that Black always carries the heavy and the hope. And that is what we are meant to do. And that is what our work is about. And so thank you again for taking the time with us. And we will be back next week with another episode.